Aloha, and welcome to Tell Me a Story, a showcase for true stories from people who call Hawaii home. Tonight we have two stories looking back to the past from Jeanette Pawson Herenico and Nanette Napoleon. First, Nanette Napoleon is a historian and researcher who has worked on many projects on Hawaiian history and is well known for her cemetery tours in the islands. Tonight, she shares a childhood memory of her late father, renowned beach boy Nappy Napoleon.
This story takes place in 1964 when I was 13 years old. My father, who was Nathan Nappy Napoleon, was a well-known Waikiki beach boy at the Halekulani Hotel. And for some reason, I can't remember, I think he wanted to go visit somebody coming in on one of the Lurleen boats. He decided to take about 5 or 6 of us kids, and he piled us all into his car, and we drove down to Honolulu Harbor. The Royal Hawaiian Band was playing, there were all the lei sellers down there, and then he kind of, like ducks, we followed him to the bow of the ship, and we stood on the deck of the pier, right at Aloha Tower, and one of the big Matson ships were there. So he dives into the harbor, and he just waves us, and all of us kids, we dive into the water. We were all very good swimmers and surfers, because my father had taught us well that. We're very comfortable doing that. So we all dive in there, and he swims us over to the side of the ship, just looming above us, and we couldn't even see the sky practically. Treading water over there, and as we were doing that, we could see people looking over the rail into the water and at us. There were altogether maybe about 20 to 25 kids in the water. And so people gathered at the rail, and then they started taking out coins, and they would hold it above their head and kind of wave it around and then toss it over, and then we would go diving for them. I was new to all of this, so I'm going, how am I supposed to do this? My dad really didn't give us any instructions, so I'm going, I don't know, I'm just going to watch the other kids and see what they do. So the tourists up above, they were going, here, here, and then tossing their coins, and they were going everywhere, and they were splashing in the water around me, and all of a sudden the older kids, they started diving down like ducks. And so I just copied them, but at first we were all kind of crowded together, and my first dive, it was just a mangle of legs and arms and bodies, and I couldn't see anything, and I certainly didn't see any coins. So I came back up without anything, and I go, okay, how am I supposed to do this, right? A coin dropped by me. It was a quarter, and quarters are small and light. And so when it hits the water, it was going down really fast, and I dived for all I was worth, but I was only like 90 pounds, right? And I couldn't chase it fast enough. It went into the deep and into the dark, and I lost it. So I came back up, and I'm going, how am I supposed to get any coins if they're going to go that fast? But I see the other kids, especially the boys. I was the only girl in the water. All the boys were coming up, and they had quarters, and they had 50-cent pieces, and they had dollars. The dollar ones were really big. And so they were coming up in this, get the dollar, and they, I got $1, and bragging, and they're competing for the coins, right? I want one of those dollars. So I wasn't getting anything. I kept diving, but the boys kept getting in my way and pushing me away, and I couldn't compete with those boys. Then all of a sudden, we hear this big booming voice from the first deck, and I looked up, and it was this big Hawaiian guy, and he had a beautiful white linen suit on and a white Panama hat. In a really loud voice, he goes, "Hey, you boys, move away, let the girl have it, let the girl have it." They got a little scared, so they moved away from me, and then the man held up a silver dollar. And I'm looking, I'm going, me? You're talking about me, right? So I said, okay. So he tosses it right at me, and it lands at maybe about 2 feet from me. And boom, I'm on it. I'm diving for that coin, and I saw it immediately. It was heavier and bigger, so I was able to keep up with it, but it was still a little bit ahead of me. But I was like almost there, right? And I had my hands out, and I'm swimming, I'm trying to grab it. It was just out of reach. But the problem was I'm going deeper and deeper, and I was so intent on getting that coin that I didn't realize how deep I was going. I saw how dark the water was getting. It was scaring me a little bit, but I really wanted that coin. Swimming for my life, I was going to get that dollar, So finally I did. It was probably just a few seconds, but it felt like a really long time to me. So I grabbed the coin. Immediately after I grabbed the coin, I feel something tugging on my foot. And I'm going, oh, shark, right? So I twist around like this and I look up. It's not a shark, it was my father. He had grabbed the hold of my foot and he grabbed me, he pulled me up towards him, and I had braids in those days, a really long braid. And he grabbed my braid and he grabbed on and he pulled me up to the surface. I was down there longer than he thought I should be down there, so he came after me. And so I get to the surface and I had the coin and I raise it above my head in triumph. And everybody on the ship starts clapping for me and everything, and all the kids are going splashing in the water. Oh, it's just very, very exciting. And I kept that dollar for many years, but lost it somewhere along the way. But what I didn't ever lose was the memory of that experience, because it became very important for me, because it was an experience I shared with my father. And I get really emotional when I think about it.
Thank you. Nanette, what motivated you to recall this story?
I come from a very large Hawaiian family. In my immediate family, I had 6 children. My father was a child of 8. My mother was a child of 14. Storytelling was very important growing up because we were Hawaiians and oral history was very important. I grew up listening to many, many stories. And in my own life, I had many stories. But I chose this one because in my lifetime, growing up with a Beach Boy father created many, many strong memories, very happy and memorable experiences. And this was probably one of the more memorable of the experiences.
Thank you. Film producer Jeanette Paulson Herenico, founder of the Hawaii International Film Festival, takes a detour from the Moscow Film Festival in 2005 to visit the ancestral home of her grandmother in southwest Russia. Here is Jeanette Paulson Herenico with Over the River and Through the Woods to Grandmother's House We Go.
I love my Grandma Seaside. Grandma Seaside tells me stories. Stories about when she was a little girl like me, how she lived in Norka, Russia, with her family, and they lived in this big, beautiful farmhouse near a river and trees to climb and haystacks to hide in, over the river and through the woods. I love my Grandma Seaside. She tells me stories about Norka, and she teaches me Volga German nursery rhymes. Jammer Bibchen, sitzt mir ruhig auf dem Stuhl. Hi, I'm 13 now. My Grandma Seaside is telling us great stories again about growing up in Norka, Russia. Oh no, her name isn't really Grandma Seaside, but my sister Sheila and I, we call her that because she lives in Seaside, Oregon, with my Grandpa Seaside. Norka must be such a wonderful place to live. Everyone's so happy there, and they take sled rides in the snow, and they walk through the forest, and they swim in the Volga River, which is near their house. I'd like to go there someday. I can find it, because there's a mill where they turn the grain into flour nearby. I'm 16 now, and I still love my Grandma Seaside, and she's telling me stories about how wonderful it was to grow up as a Volga German in Norka, Russia. But she just told me this really spooky story. When she was my age, she and her sister Katrina were told to run. Their dad said, "Run as fast as you can. Run out of the house, out to the fields. The Russian soldiers are coming after them." You see, it's right after World War I, and the Russians wanted to get rid of all the Volga Germans. Run, Grandma. Run, Katrina. Run and hide in the haystacks. And the soldiers came, and Grandma, she hears yells from inside her house, shrilling, murderous yells. She and her sister Katrina, they stay hidden, holding each other, shaking and waiting. Wait until no more yells, no more sounds, and they run for their lives, over the river and through the woods. Run away from their beautiful farmhouse, from Norka. Run, Grandma, run, never look back. Somehow Grandma and her sister Kate get on the boat and sail to America. Somehow they go to Nebraska, where there's a whole bunch of other Volga German families, and that's where she meets Grandpa, and they marry, and they move to Seaside, Oregon, and they have 5 children, and they become my Grandma and Grandpa Seaside. My Grandma Seaside passed on many years ago, but I still remember and am inspired by her stories, particularly how beautiful it was in Norca, and how sad she was. She had to leave her childhood home under such terrible circumstances. Now I'm living in Honolulu, and I'm married to Billy, and it's 2005, and we've just spent the last 4 years making a film based on his childhood, growing up on a small Polynesian island in Fiji. It's called Rotuma, and the film is called The Land Has Eyes. And when we screened it in Sundance, I'm thrilled because the director of the Moscow International Film Festival loves our film, and she invites Billy and me to bring it to Moscow and show during the festival. Hey, Billy, it's my turn now. We spent 4 years of our lives exploring your Polynesian roots. Now I'm going to examine my family roots. Hey, Billy, I've done some research on the internet. After the Moscow International Film Festival, we fly south to Saratov, a city of 1 million people. Can you believe it? Never heard of Saratov? 1 million people. And from there, we hire a driver and a translator. We're going to Norca. Who knows? I mean, Billy, you know, one of Grandma's relatives moved back into the family farmhouse. Maybe we can get to know my relatives. Isn't this going to be wonderful? Well, we had an amazing time during the Moscow Film Festival, and now here we are in Saratov, Russia, and we discovered today there's no mention of the Volga German communities in the Russian textbooks even today. No one mentions how my people were either killed or starved to death or shipped in inhumane train cars to Siberia or work camps in Kazakhstan after World War I, and they were completely eliminated during Stalin's regime. My grandmother, she got out in a nick of time. Today the Volga Germans aren't even acknowledged by the Russians. They're denying my history. Well, maybe in some small way I can bring some sense of reconciliation. Maybe I can get to know the people who live on the beautiful land where my grandmother grew up. I've got these chocolate-covered macadamia nuts and Lion's coffee, and maybe in my own small way I can bring aloha to them, sort of my own mini Peace Corps. I know this is silly, but maybe, just maybe if we hit it off, I can invite them to Honolulu and get to know them on a person-to-person basis. They can stay in our guest room. Waking up at sunrise to start our journey to Norca. The driver and our translators waiting for us. Oh, look at Anna, who's going to be our tour guide and translator. She's gorgeous. Yes, but she's trained to smile, to always be pleasant, always smiling, always saying pleasant things. It's particularly annoying to me after we've been driving what seems like hours. The road to Norca is so bumpy, dirty, dusty, no public restrooms at the gas station. When are we going to get there? I am so thirsty. This is taking much longer than I thought. When are the beautiful forests going to show up? It's all dry and brown. Anna, can you ask the driver to stop the car? There's some farmers selling things at the side of the road. Maybe we can get something to drink. Oh, look, Philly, look. There's a woman selling cabbage, and she's wearing a traditional Russian dress. She's wearing a scarf over her head, just like I remember my grandma wearing. I've got to take a picture of her. Please do not take a photo of her. This is rude. But why not, Billy? Just a quick one to remember her. I've got a documenter for the scarf for my kids, for the grandkids. The old woman saw me with the camera, and just as I clicked, she held up a huge cabbage, completely covering her head, including her scarf. Damn it. Please, Jeanette, I find it exploitive when you take photos of people in the rural areas without first asking permission. It reminds me of those anthropologists who came to my islands and took, quote, pictures of the, quote, natives, unquote, without asking. It's painful. Please do me this one favor, and do not take a picture around here without first asking permission. Well, Billy could be right, you know. I remember all these Japanese tourists taking picture of my blonde little daughter when we were in Waikiki and how annoying that was. And I know how upset Billy is. He says people from rural areas aren't familiar with cameras and they don't know what you're trying to do with their images and how you're going to use them. And I want to be more sensitive. I'd hate to be thought of as the ugly American. Okay, Billy, I promise. I'll ask permission when we get to Norca before taking photos of my people there. But if you really want to know the truth, and I hate to admit this, just looking out here over this flat, barren, dry land, it doesn't look anything at all the way Grandma told me it was around Norca. I wonder if we're on the wrong road. All of a sudden, I understand why the Volga Germans who came to America like settling in Nebraska's completely flat farming land. Over the river and through the woods. What woods? I can't even see a tree. Oh, maybe one here or there, but Grandma told me there's a beautiful forest. Ah, I'm exhausted. We're out here in Nowheresville. Anna, are you sure we're on the right road? It seems so far away from the Volga River. I'm sure Grandma told me she lived right on the Volga River. The car stops. Anna announced, "This is it, Norca." This is it? I came all the way for this? I look straight ahead at the narrow dirt road with a few scattered old run-down wooden structures. We see one very old woman carrying a large bag walking slowly on the road leading to a brown hillside. Anna gets out the car and approaches the woman. "Do you know where the old Schreiber house is?" I'm sure she's asking him that. And she's probably telling him that they have a farm with an old mill where grain was turned into flour. And Anna comes back and she says, "She wants to know if your grandmother has a sister." Yes, she did. The sister's name was Katrina. Anna tells the old woman. I see the old woman pointing. They're talking. Anna comes back with the translation. She says the old Schreiber house is near the mill, over that hill, to the left, and then we go down. Let's go. My heart's racing. It's going to come right out of my body. It's racing so fast as the driver takes us up the hill, following a faint impression of a road. Then all traces of the road stop. Anna says with her never-ending smile, "Get out. Now let's look for the path that goes down the valley. This house is somewhere down here in the valley." Billy and I get out. I'm like an excited little child, searching the dry brown earth, wading through thickets of scratchy weeds. Billy says, "Look, I think this is it. Faint tracks of tires leading down here." Me, Anna, and the driver run over to see. Anna says something to the driver in Russian, turns to Billy and says, "Let's try. Get in the car." We rush back to the car, and now I know why we were driven in a four-wheel drive, so bumpy. Our heads bounce on the top of the car. Bump. Finally, over there. It's a house. I can see it. Oh, I'm sure it's my Grandma Seaside's house. Look, there's haystacks, just like the ones. The car stops right before hitting a huge rock. It looks like someone put it there. We can't drive any further. We get out and walk towards the house. "Look, Billy, someone's coming out of the house." I'm going to go back to the car to get my macadamia chocolate nut candy and my Lion's coffee. I'm so excited to meet them, and I fight back tears to think I'm here. I'm standing on the ground where my beloved Grandma Seaside grew up. My knees are shaking. Never mind if the sky is gray and overcast. Never mind that the ground is hard and dry and brown. Never mind if it's nothing at all like my grandmother's stories. I am here, my roots, and I'm about to celebrate with my contemporary who feels tied to this Aina. I can tell it is a man who's emerged from the back door. I hear dogs barking. As he walks towards us, I see he's a big Russian man. I mean huge, shirtless, big, wide hips, fat, white belly hanging low over dark pants. As he comes closer, long, stringy, gray, dirty hair, his pants so low I can almost see black hairs poking out from the center top of his pants. All of a sudden, I realize how isolated we are, how far away from every sign of human life, how vulnerable we are in a place the Russians refuse to admit exists. It's creeping in, the fear of the unknown, the sense of danger. I'm scared. I try my damnedest to push away my fear. The closer he comes to us, the more we can smell him. Reeks of alcohol. It's vodka. It's only 10:30 in the morning. I must face this fear. I must force this fear away. I tell myself as my hands shake, stop it, Jeanette. Don't be such a chicken, I say to myself. I mean, we as human beings must push ourselves to the edge to learn who we are. We must trust other human beings and learn from them. I am shaking. Anna approaches the man and explains where we are. Bloodshot eyes glare at us, and he says something. What is it? What is he saying? Anna translated. I've always wanted to ask an American this question. I wonder it is. What is the question? What is he thinking? But damn it, this is where my grandma Seaside lived, and I'm here on her beloved Norca, and this is real. This is the moment I've been waiting for. I want his photo to prove that I've made it, to prove my roots. Oh, but I'll ask him if I can take his picture first, and then I'll answer it. Anna, could you please ask him if he would be so kind as to allow me to take a picture of him first before I answer the question? And I'd like him to stand just a little bit more over to the right so I can get him and the house too. She turns and translates my request. I hand Billy the chocolate-covered macadamia nuts and Lion's coffee so I can better aim the camera. I smile for a quick moment at Billy. He must be so proud of me. I'm asking permission before snapping away. The huge man a few feet away responds in rough, loud tones of a language I do not know, but I see his spit flying out between his dark teeth as he speaks. His bare, hairy chest swells. He lifts his huge arms. He points to me. He shouts angry words I've never heard. I feel it. We're in deep kimchi. We're in forbidden territory. I can see in the distance his dogs growling and coming towards us. Every bit of my body wants to flee, but I'm frozen to the spot. I'm scared shitless. Anna turns to Villy and me. Her plastic smile is gone. Run to the car now. Anna runs. The driver starts the car. Dog barking, man yelling, heart pounding. I force my body forward. Villy, he's pulling my arm forward. Now I feel myself moving. I can run, faster, run to the car. Hear dogs barking. Don't look back. Get in the car. Hands stop shaking. Hands stop shaking. Open the door. Close the door. Barking dogs. Get into the goddamn door. Help me, Villy. Get me. Hold me, Villy. Go, car, go. Away from the yells we drive. Away from the barking dogs. Away from the smells. Away from their farm. Grandma's farm, his home. Grandma's Norca, his place. Away we drive. Away from Norca. Never look back. Over the bridge and through the woods I never saw. Away from Grandma's beautiful Norca I never experienced. Away from my roots. Where are my roots now? Away from the Volga River, back to Saratov, back on the plain, away from Russia, over 2 oceans, away. I want to go home. I want to go back to Honolulu, my chosen home. To this day, I don't know what that man living in my grandmother's house said that caused every bit of my being to run away scared for my life. But maybe, just maybe, that man we met, was the grandson of one of the soldiers who killed my great-grandmother, my great-grandfather, causing my grandma Seaside and her sister Katrina to run for their lives. Maybe he thought this American was coming back to claim the house. After all, don't all Americans want more land and to own more things? Oh, I really don't know. All I know is this. just like my grandma Seaside did 90 years earlier. I ran for my life, over the rivers and through the woods, away, out of Norka, Russia forever. I still love my grandma Seaside, and she and the inspiration from her stories, that's my roots. I found those roots by remembering my grandma and Seaside, Oregon. Oregon, where I was born. My roots. And now Honolulu is my chosen home.
Jeanette, what gave you the inspiration to tell this story?
Living in Honolulu, one always is reminded of what are our real roots. We know the Hawaiians are our hosts and we're guests here. So I've lived here 38 years and I've often thought, what are my roots? Who am I in relation to this beautiful land? It kept coming back to my grandma Seaside, who was my inspiration for all the stories I tell. She was the greatest storyteller I ever knew. And she used to tell me stories as a little child. And she'd always tell me about growing up in Norka, Russia, as a Volga German. My mother didn't like that she was teaching me German and Russian, which I understand now at this age, because it was after the wars were over and it wasn't cool to be Russian and German. But as an adult, I really wanted to go back and trace those roots and find out what relationship I might have to the Aina, to the land where my grandmother grew up. And this is the story of what happened when I did that.
Thank you. We hope you enjoyed tonight's stories. Tune in next time when we'll share more true tales on Tell Me a Story. Ahui ho.